And it looked like the Indiana Fever front office is caught red-handed, lying to reporters.
Who's lying? Who's telling the truth? Can we just get the same information from the insider?
Stephanie White thought she could outsmart everyone. The Indiana Fever head coach stood in front of cameras, smiled, and tried to sell the most unbelievable injury story the WNBA has ever seen. She admitted to misleading fans about Caitlin Clark's recovery timeline. And now, the entire situation looks like one giant scam.
Stephanie White hoped Clark would be back in practice this week. Open portion of practice, Clark is not seen.
The official story was that Clark hurt herself during a workout on August 7th. Sounds neat, right? Except footage from that same day shows Caitlin casually walking around Phoenix with a Prada bag that cost more than most people's rent. No limp, no wince, no sign of pain. Unless Prada secretly doubled as medical equipment, Stephanie White's timeline was already falling apart. But here's where the problem explodes. The Fever didn't stop there. They doubled down. They repeated the same story to reporters, hoping fans would just accept it. But fans aren't blind. Social media receipts, time-stamped footage, and slow-motion replays exposed the contradictions instantly.
There's further information coming out that Clark suffered a bit of an ankle injury in the midst of her recovery process. Did that hinder her return? One reporter saying yes, another reporter is saying no.
Do you think Caitlin Clark should return, or should she sit out for the rest of the season? Then came the shifting statuses. First, Clark was day-to-day, then she was out indefinitely, then somehow she became a game-time decision, only for White to admit later that she hadn't practiced once. That's not careful wording, that's manipulation, and when your star player's health is involved, manipulation is unforgivable. Fans aren't just frustrated, they feel disrespected. It's one thing to protect a player's privacy, it's another to treat loyal supporters like they're too dumb to notice the obvious lies. White didn't just mishandle an injury update, she shattered trust with the very people keeping the Fever afloat. Let's rewind to August 12th, because that's when Stephanie White's story really started crumbling. On ESPN, she said she hoped Caitlin Clark would be back in practice this week. That sounded optimistic, but when reporters showed up, Clark wasn't there. After practice, White brushed it off with a vague, "It's status quo until Clark is back at practice."
ESPN had August 12th as the circled return date for Caitlin Clark to get back onto the court, and just yesterday she was listed as a game time decision. After practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, like, no, Caitlin Clark hasn't even been practicing.
Translation: we've got nothing, but we'll stall for time. Now here's where it gets messy. Teammate Natasha Howard even told Clark, "See you soon, Cece," hinting that her return was right around the corner. But instead of progress, fans got silence and delays. The narrative kept changing. One report claimed Clark aggravated her ankle, another said no, and all the while White stuck to generic lines about long-term health. The official injury date, August 7th, didn't add up either. That's the day Caitlin was spotted in Phoenix walking smoothly, looking completely fine. No limp, no brace, nothing. Which leaves fans asking, was the injury story fabricated, or are they covering up something that happened earlier? But here's the twist that really raised eyebrows. Remember assistant coach Brianna January stepping on Clark's foot during a game?
With the injury, and now got stepped on by the coach.
That moment was quickly dismissed as nothing, but now it looks suspicious. Did the Fever invent the workout accident to cover for a mistake from their own staff? If so, White's credibility isn't just damaged, it's gone. Instead of giving clear answers, the Fever dangled false hope. Clark's status bounced from day to day to indefinite to a laughable game time decision for Dallas, even though she hadn't practiced once. That's not transparency, that's bait and switch. And when you play games with the biggest star in the league, fans will notice, and they won't forgive.
It's false hope to get people to keep showing up, keep buying tickets. They got us content creators waiting and hoping, hey, they said she might be, this is the empty time. This is the time for practice that she might return.
The contradictions didn't stop there. After the groin injury, Caitlin Clark was first listed as day-to-day. Then, with no warning, she became out indefinitely. By August 12th, ESPN circled that date as her return, but when the day arrived, Clark wasn't even in practice. And here's where the story collapses. Before the Fever's game against the Dallas Wings, she was bizarrely labeled a game-time decision. Think about that. A player who hadn't practiced in weeks was supposedly minutes away from suiting up. That's not cautious optimism, that's a marketing stunt designed to get fans tuning in, buying tickets, and expecting a miracle. Fans caught on immediately. They saw Clark standing on the sidelines in street clothes, not participating in drills, not even warming up, yet the official line suggested she might play. That doesn't just stretch the truth, it insults the intelligence of everyone watching. But it gets worse. Local reporters didn't hold the team accountable. Instead, they laughed while retelling the workout accident story. One even chuckled as though Clark's setback was entertainment. Imagine that, the league's most important player reduced to a punchline by the very people trusted to deliver updates. That's not journalism, that's embarrassing.
Because you is part of the problem. You're lying to the people, and you're supposed to be looked upon as a person we can count on for credibility and to keep it transparent with the fans.
And Clark? She's been forced into the PR script. Every interview sounds the same. I'm working hard, feeling good, just unlucky. Not once has her voice felt natural. Not once has it sounded like she was speaking freely. When the biggest star in women's basketball sounds rehearsed, fans know something's off. And the more dots you connect, the uglier it looks. The Phoenix footage, the January foot stomp, the shifting timelines, they don't form an accident. They form a pattern, and patterns don't lie. The Fever aren't managing Clark's recovery, they're managing the narrative, and that's the most dangerous game of all. By now, it's obvious the Indiana Fever's handling of Caitlin Clark isn't just sloppy, it's reckless. From the start, the team hammered the idea that she needed more muscle to survive in the WNBA, so they rushed her through an aggressive training program, piling on strength at a pace that screams injury risk. And what happened? Exactly what anyone could predict. Her body broke down. But here's what the Fever won't admit. Instead of acknowledging their mistake, they covered it with a fairy tale, a workout accident, an unlucky tweak. Nothing to see here, except there was everything to see. Fans spotted the contradictions immediately. Smooth footage of Clark and Phoenix, the inconsistent updates, and the recycled PR lines that made her sound like a robot. The reality is, Caitlin isn't being treated like a franchise player. She's being treated like a marketing tool. Want ticket sales? Tease her return. Want to distract from losses? Float that she's day to day. It's manipulation, plain and simple. And here's where the stakes skyrocket. Clark isn't just another name on the roster. She's the WNBA's golden goose. She's driving attendance, ratings, and sponsorship money at levels the league has never seen. Mishandling her doesn't just hurt the Fever, it risks stalling the entire league's growth. That's how fragile this moment is. Meanwhile, Stephanie White keeps smiling in pressers as if the holes in her story aren't obvious. Every time she repeats the same empty cliches, long-term health, being cautious, her credibility shrinks further. Fans don't believe her. Reporters outside Indiana don't believe her. And worst of all, Caitlin herself is trapped in a narrative she didn't create. If one name keeps popping up in this mess, it's assistant coach Brianna January. First, she stepped on Caitlin Clark's foot during a game, an incident that looked clumsy but is starting to look deliberate. Then later, when Clark tried to pump up fans from the sideline, January physically pulled her back. 2 moments, same coach, both suspicious. Here's the detail that changes everything. The Fever insist Clark was hurt during a workout, but game footage tells another story. Fans can literally watch January's foot land on Clark's, followed by Caitlin wincing. If that's when the injury happened, the practice accident narrative isn't just wrong, it's a cover-up. That means Stephanie White has been lying from day one. Instead of honesty, the team leaned into spin. White kept recycling the same PR-friendly lines. We're prioritizing her long-term health. We just want her at 100%. But those words don't match the actions. Clark was rushed back once, aggravated the injury, and then forced through contradictory updates that confused everyone. That's not protecting her, that's reckless. But the real embarrassment came from the media. Reporters like Scott Agnes didn't challenge the story. They laughed while retelling it, they smirked about how unlucky Caitlin was. Imagine the league's most valuable star sidelined, and the journalists tasked with giving fans answers turn it into comedy. It's insulting, and fans noticed. The fallout is brutal. Clark's every interview sounds scripted. I'm working hard, feeling good, just unlucky. Fans can tell she isn't free to speak honestly, and instead of building her up, the Fever have tied her name to a scandal she never asked for. What should have been her breakout season has turned into a circus, and the longer this continues, the more obvious it becomes. Caitlin Clark isn't being supported, she's being silenced. At this stage, the problem is no longer about one bad timeline. It's about a culture inside the Indiana Fever that puts spin above honesty and control above player safety. And Caitlin Clark is the one paying the price. Here's where the picture sharpens. The Fever aren't treating Clark like a superstar. They're treating her like a marketing prop. Want to sell tickets? Hint that she's close to returning. Want to distract from losses? Label her as day-to-day. It's manipulation dressed up as injury management, and fans are smart enough to see through it. Stephanie White's credibility has collapsed. Every time she doubles down on the workout injury story, the contradictions pile higher. Every vague promise about long-term health feels emptier. Instead of protecting Caitlin, White has dragged her into a PR circus where no one knows what to believe. But the danger runs deeper than headlines. Clark's body is under real risk. Rushing recovery, pushing aggressive strength training, and spinning inconsistent updates create pressure that could shorten her career. And let's be honest, if Clark is sidelined long term, the fallout won't just cripple the Fever. The entire WNBA will feel it. Ratings, attendance, sponsorship momentum, all of it depends on her. Fans have started saying what the Fever won't. Caitlin should seek outside help, go back to Iowa doctors, find trusted specialists, because nobody believes the Fever medical staff anymore. And when the organization can't even be trusted to tell the truth about when she got hurt, why would anyone trust their treatment plan? And that's the harsh truth. Clark isn't being protected. She's being mishandled by the very people who should safeguard her career. And if this continues, Stephanie White won't just regret one lie, she'll regret torching the trust of every single person who came to see Caitlin Clark change the game. Now the question isn't whether Stephanie White lied, it's why. Who benefits from keeping Caitlin Clark sidelined under a cloud of confusion? It's not the fans, it's not the league, and it's definitely not Clark herself. Here's where it all clicks together. The timing couldn't be worse. Clark was heating up, the Fever were finally showing flashes of momentum, and the WNBA was buzzing louder than ever. Then suddenly she's out, and the explanation is a flimsy workout accident. Fans aren't buying it because the receipts don't lie. Phoenix footage proves she was fine. Game footage shows Brianna January's stomp, and the shifting labels, day-to-day, indefinite, game-time decision, prove the front office is winging it. Meanwhile, the narrative being pushed is that Clark isn't ready. She needs more muscle. She needs to get stronger. That's not a development plan. That's an excuse to dim her shine, to make her dominance look temporary. Instead of celebrating the biggest star in women's basketball, the Fever have buried her under contradictions. And here's the kicker. If this were the NBA, the fallout would already be massive. Coaches would be fired. Reporters would be hounded. The league office would step in. But in the WNBA, silence. Local journalists laughing at pressers, White smiling through lies, and fans left to piece together the truth on their own. The damage is lasting. White's credibility is gone. Fans don't trust her updates. Clark's words sound scripted. And the Fever, instead of riding the wave of Caitlin's superstardom, have managed to turn it into a scandal. Clark deserves to be the face of the league. Instead, she's being treated like she's expendable, and that is the Fever's biggest mistake yet. At this point, the Fever can't escape the truth. Stephanie White thought she could manage Caitlin Clark's injury story with half-truths and smiles, but all she really did was expose her own lack of credibility. The official narrative never added up, and fans have already connected every dot. Here's the final reality check. The footage doesn't lie. Caitlin walking around Phoenix on the supposed injury date. Brianna January stepping on her foot during a game. The endless flip-flopping between day-to-day, indefinite, and game-time decision. Every contradiction points to the same conclusion. The Fever haven't been transparent, and Clark is the one paying the price. And that's the real tragedy. Clark isn't just another player. She's the biggest star women's basketball has seen in decades. She's selling out arenas, driving TV ratings, and pulling sponsorship dollars into the league. Mishandling her doesn't just hurt Indiana, it risks slowing the growth of the entire WNBA. But here's the twist White never saw coming. Every lie, every contradiction, and every scripted line has only made Caitlin's fan base more loyal. Instead of turning away, they've doubled down. They've kept the receipts, amplified the evidence, and refused to let the narrative be buried. White wanted to control the story. Instead, she created a scandal that will follow her no matter what happens next. So where does it go from here? Either the Fever finally come clean and admit the mistakes, or they keep hiding until the truth explodes on its own. But one thing is certain, Stephanie White's regret has already begun. And if you're enjoying this breakdown and want more deep dives into the stories the headlines won't tell you, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the channel and stay locked in for the next chapter. Thank you.